Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info, coming at you a couple days after the conclusion of the Pala Casino 400 at the Auto Club Speedway of Southern California, the last race on the 2-mile oval. I was covering the action this past weekend for the website there, going through the snowstorms and whatnot from that weekend. And of course, the victories that concluded the action there, with Kyle Busch taking his first win for Richard Childress Racing, his first for a team other than Joe Gibbs since 2007, in the Cup Series at least. And then John Hunter Nemechek taking the victory in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. So we'll be talking about all of that tonight. I'll go ahead and we'll wait a little bit here to kind of let more people come in here, because I did post a first version of this. We didn't have the audio cable plugged in correctly there, so hopefully people will be able to find their way over here. I deleted the other version of the video, but we got plenty enough to talk about here. As you can see, I'm still very much bundled up after the weekend. It was every bit as cold as you're hearing about on the broadcast or otherwise here. It was definitely very much a challenge through the weekend here. But we can certainly talk about that at the same time here. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in here. And we'll definitely be catching up on the action from this weekend. So I guess probably the best way to go ahead and lead into this, I mean, our shows usually after covering a race in person are usually a little bit more free form and kind of go through things more chronologically. Rather than the most immediate race that concluded here. So I guess I'll go ahead and kind of lead in with, how things are going over the weekend there. We left, Lastbro and myself, left on Thursday afternoon from here at headquarters. And when we did, it was snowing for the first time since 2019 as a result of this winter storm that came blasting through here. We're up in the Sacramento area when all this was taking place. And, which made kind of loading the car up a little bit of a challenge there. That was just, that kind of set the tone for the entire weekend. Obviously, hearing about the storm blowing in there and wondering how exactly things are going to be playing out at the racetrack here. Getting down south was also every bit as treacherous as you may or may not have been hearing. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people who were planning on attending to this race either decided not to go or, just got stuck someplace down south. California has a number of different highways and freeways to get through LA, and all of them kind of form a pretty big knot in the LA basin there. So you have a couple of different options to get down there. Basically, either going down the coast, going down Interstate 5 down the middle of the state, or there's some other back roads to go through the mountains a little bit further east and kind of getting in the valley that way. We ultimately didn't go on the as far as the coast, but on Friday afternoon, we kind of stopped in Harris Ranch the first night, which is maybe about a third of the way into the trip. 40 miles out of Interstate 5, that was closed. So we immediately went east into Bakersfield to try to find some of the mountain passes there and kind of get to, I think it's the 235 that goes south into the eastern part of the LA basin there, closer to the track. But we kept getting turned around. We heard the most direct route was also closed off because of snow. We went further north to another one, and right when we got there, they were starting to turn people around from the narrow stretch there that was closed off. I think that was a 178. So we went even further north, had to take a lot of back roads there, and went to the 155, which is even higher up in the mountains. At this point, you started having a whole lot more traffic, semi-trucks and basically everything else that had been diverted from elsewhere up there. And at this point here, by the time we got to actually the Central Valley, the weather was actually pretty good. We didn't really have too many problems with it. But we were getting through the mountains and you started seeing more and more snow on the side of the road. And, the traffic started going slower and slower. And pretty soon we saw that we were getting turned around up there as well. So we had heard on the trip down there that the real bad stuff was going to come in about 4 o'clock Pacific time. It was about 7 o'clock Eastern on Friday. And from there on, the storm was going to be just kind of big, bad, and there to stay. And that was kind of our situation. So when we had to double back through Bakersfield, we were thinking like, oh man, we're going to be like we're going to be maybe heading back to the 5, like right when, the middle of this is happening. And hopefully things have opened up by then. Luckily, we got through Bakersfield pretty quickly. And the 58, which was the closest one to the north side of the basin, we got through that, and we were basically on that route there. And the storm did indeed hit right around 4 o'clock, 4:30, right when things were starting to get dark, getting out to Tehachapi direction there, kind of in the desert. Ordinarily be pretty wide open area there, very little different weather. Certainly wouldn't expect it to be very wet climate over there. But that's some of the pictures I posted there at that point. It was just absolutely sucked in. Just a crazy situation. Like, actually, if you didn't know any better, you'd probably think you were in Alaska or Colorado or something like that, and the ceiling was just coming down. But, the rain eased up enough that even though they closed another route that was going into LA, we kind of got back over to the 235, got over the rest of the pass, and everybody's just tiptoeing over that. No chains or anything like that, but just kind of running, maybe about 40 miles an hour, if that. Just kind of tiptoeing over the hill, and then we were able to get in the hotel that night. So luckily that worked out well. It was kind of in the back of our mind. It's like, well, it sounded like even back then the forecast for Saturday was going to be really, really bad. And we're like, okay, they're probably going to wipe all track activity. If they get anything in on Saturday, probably nothing short of a miracle. And ultimately, that ended up being pretty true. But we got there Friday night, and we got to our hotel. We stayed in Ontario, which is just the next town over from the track. Same hotel we've stayed at the last couple of years there, and got set up there. So I think by the time we got up the next morning, they already wiped the track activity at the track there, which is too bad. I think that kind of affected the coverage a little bit this weekend, at least on my part. I really like having practice and qualifying to kind of set the tone for, following the last place finishers and kind of seeing a lot of the struggles these teams are kind of trying to figure out, especially in the Xfinity series where we had more than enough entries to fill the field. It sounds like from the entry list that were just posted earlier today that we still have the same 40 teams that are going to be attempting the race in Las Vegas next week. But then of course, on top of this, okay, it's drizzling a bit outside. And to those of you, I've seen a couple people just jumping into the chat here. Jonathan, thank you for tuning in as well. Appreciated you braving the weather with me as well here when we were both chasing some of the action there in the infield at the track there. It was wild. It was wild. And oh my goodness. Ugh. I apologize for yawning a bit here. I'm still kind of getting back into the swing of things. I stayed up entirely too late on the articles there. I almost fell asleep with a computer in my lap. So we're kind of getting back going. Luckily, we do have the code red on hand here. So that'll help a little bit. But oh my goodness. So Saturday morning, we get to the track. And big thanks again to the Patreon members who joined up. We had a couple new members that joined on the magnet there, so we got their names on there. And believe me, this magnet, we'll do the drawing after the show here tonight, and that'll be posted up on Twitter. So those of you who tuned in for that tonight, that'll be coming up after the show here, and we'll do the drawing for that. We got several new names on there, so I got to finish making the tags to make sure everybody's got their shot at winning it here. And I got a couple things that I'm going to throw in with that. We'll deal with that later, but that will be coming this evening here for you guys, other than the Patreon. Big thanks to you guys. We had a lot more names on it this year, and it was a heck of a race. This one definitely went through all kinds of weather on the side of the car, and it made it back, which is even more remarkable. So big props to the folks over at Build a Sign for making a good magnet there. But the first of these challenges, of course, was getting there on Saturday. Now, we decided to do kind of a later start because especially when we heard that, they're going to cancel track activity, which we were expecting. So it's like, well, we're not going to get up at like crack of dawn. It's going to be ridiculous. And it's already so cold outside. So we both bundled up. I think I had like a t-shirt, polo shirt. I had a sweater and my red and black jacket, which I actually wore at Fontana in 2020. There's a picture of me interviewing Garrett Smithley with it a while back. And that jacket has held up great in most any weather conditions we've had here in California. We get some crazy weather, nothing like what happens on the East Coast or certainly further up north. But that held up okay. I figured anything that happens, this will be fine. So we pull up in the media parking lot first and foremost, I mentioned on the last show here that I got some different shoes because I wanted to wear more comfortable shoes at the track. And the first thing the guys told me when I bought these is like, well, these do not hold up in the rain. And they were right about that. Luckily, I didn't ruin them, but I wore them when I was getting my credentials, and just there were rivers already everywhere. Like, I mean, any gutter was a river. Like, it already overflowed at that point. The third lane at the main entrance to the track was completely flooded. A semi truck went through it and was just bogged down in it. Like, it was just, the lane was completely unusable. Like, the flooding was like that bad around the track, which is surprising given that Fontana is in a very flat industrial area, very overdeveloped, like a lot of LA is, of course. But we got through all that, and luckily I brought my boots, so I changed out of my sneakers, make sure to save those for Sears Point later this year. I got my boots, which were one of the MVPs of the weekend. They held up fantastic, which I was very pleased by. So, because man, I fully expected to just be sick as a dog after that first day. I'll tell you this. I was like, oh man, this is going to be really rough. Like, so, we got to the track there, got in the media lot, and it's like, okay, I'm going to, Last Bro was like, okay, you just kind of stay in the car, just make sure you stay warm and everything, because it was still raining. It was like, at this point, it was like 37 degrees when we pulled up in the parking spot. And I said, okay, look, I'm going to bring my stuff out. I'll drop it off at the media center, which is all the way down in turn 4. I talked about this on last time or turn 1 on last time's show. The distance you have to go from the media lot and where the medical center is to all the way to where the main media center is, and the overflow, the press box, it takes that pit road. It's like the entire length of pit road, and it takes forever to get down there. It's probably a good, if you're not running or anything like that, it's going to take you at least a good 20 minutes or so. So in the process of doing this, the weather just completely deteriorated. I was going out there, the first few steps, I noticed like every third raindrop was a snowflake. And it's like, oh, this isn't good. Like we had a couple of snowflakes on the windshield where it's like, I don't think that's going to happen. Rounding the corner past the medical center, I posted that first video. And then suddenly it's like 1 out of every 2 raindrops is a snowflake, and it feels a little bit colder, and it's like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. So I get kind of huddle up there, kind of work my way down the main straightaway. And right when I get to where the start finish line is, the snow just completely opens up. Sky just opens up, and you get these beautiful shots. I mean, any photographer that was there at that time got some incredible shots. There's a great shot of like a track worker. I think Luis Torres got this one of a track worker, just with the arms out and all that, and just watching it. A lot of the security guards kind of keeping us still in the shade, of the shade structure there at Pit Road. But everybody obviously taking pictures and video of what was happening there. And they played Let It Snow over the radio. And just crazy stuff. Something that certainly I've never seen at a track. I mean, it really shows, I guess, how limited my experience is in the trackside coverage here. But obviously, we don't have anything close to this at Sears Point for our coverage here in the Bay Area. We were at the rainstorm in advance of that hurricane at Darlington in 2019, and that was probably our first rain delay we dealt with. But this one here, it's like, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, there's no way in hell they're going to get anything going today, because this is just absurd. But they held off, and this is something I think I want to kind of emphasize right off the top of the board here. And Last Bro was kind of mentioning this too when we were driving back yesterday. Everybody that was at the track there, I think, really did like everything they could to make sure that happened, and tried to really salvage anything they could to give that track a proper send-off. And I don't just mean, the people that are, security guards or track workers, or even the people just at NASCAR themselves. Even the people working like the merch tents really had to dig deep to just be out there in that weather that weekend. And I'm sure that any one of them will probably tell you, well, this is, it's what we sign up for. Sometimes this stuff happens. But this was pretty extreme. This was extremely, very extreme from this weekend. And, maybe that says something about me because I'm not so used to, weather extremes like this. But there was a lot of that. And again, and including NASCAR in that, because talking with the folks there when I actually got to the media center, when the snow kind of started dying down a little bit, There were rumors I heard that they were going to be pulling the plug on everything about noon. And talking with people there, they're like, no, absolutely not. It's like, no, well, we'll just sit it out and see what we can do. And it's like, and it just seemed incredible at the time. It's like, look, this track is just, it's snowing, it's crazy, but they didn't. They were gonna try to make that TV slot if it was at all possible. And sure enough, we did. Lastbro and I, kind of broke off there to kind of tour the back straightaway there. By the way, tons of people in the RV lot. RV lot really was as full as it was. I know in the broadcast they'll always say, "Oh, it's a great crowd," and everybody's here, and it sounds like they have to say it. Much like the people digging deep that were working in any section of this. A huge turnout for the RVs there. I mean, they misdirected us. The parking attendants there misdirected us into the RV lot instead of the media lot at first, which actually was good because we got to see how many people were there. People riding their bikes even in the rain and stuff like that. Walking around, hanging out under tents with like barbecues, and everybody had a different fire pit and stuff. And everybody stayed in good spirits. I mean, everybody was, just again doing the best they could under the circumstances there. Certainly wanted to visit the spot where we lost Greg Moore in 1999 because I'd never actually visited that part of the track in my previous couple of visits. I've only been to this track a few times. I first went here in 2018 as a fan. Lastbro and I were up in the, they had a section of stands that were cheaper if you were a AAA member. And we were kind of sitting high up in there and watched that race there. And then I first did the media coverage of the track in 2020, of course, right when they were putting hand sanitizer dispensers on the track in advance of what happened back east. And then, of course, the race last year when they first came back for the first time since what happened there. It was good to kind of explore a bit more of the track and really kind of take advantage of that. I really wanted to, like I said on last week's show, I really want to kind of capture kind of the vibes and kind of understand, kind of take in the atmosphere at the track in general, which was challenging with the weather because you didn't want to stay outside in it too long for most of it there. But that was kind of the case. So, but yeah, NASCAR held off and they were not going to cancel anything. And sure enough, pretty soon, the Cup Garage was closed that day, but you could hear engines fire up in the Xfinity Garage and people were rolling their cars out once, and the Air Titans went out there to try to dry the track. Lastbro and I, we decided to go off site to get some lunch. And, what's great about Fontana, what's great about this property, and probably a reason that it's sold for as much as it has, is that you're never too far from anything. I think Denny Hamlin touched on this in his podcast a little bit. But certainly for us, Ontario, where our hotel is maybe about 20-minute drive from the track, if that. And in between, right before you get there, there's like the Ontario Mills Mall, which is built where the Ontario Motor Speedway used to be. This is the one I mentioned where the Hooters is like off of turn 2 of where the track used to be. In fact, you look at pictures, I think this was posted the other day. There's a shot of the Ontario Motor Speedway back when it was around before it was tore up in the 80s. And it shows in the distance the Kaiser Steel Mill that was ultimately demolished, and the Fontana track was built there in its place. So that, now where the Ontario track is now a big shopping mall, and, you got a lot that's going on there in the hotels and so forth. We checked that out, and that was, but yeah, we were able to get lunch really easy and get out of the track, get back into it like no problem. The traffic is usually, as much as the freeways are a nightmare, the immediate traffic around the track is actually handled really well. So these are other things that are going to be certainly a point in their favor, whatever they decide to do with this property going forward. But yeah, when it stopped raining, it seemed like it was going to continue to stop raining. And when we finished lunch, we're like, okay, well, let's go back to the track and see what happens. And at that point, yeah, they're starting to kind of get the Xfinity cars out on pit road. And it's like, wow, they're actually going to maybe try to start this thing. Really incredible. And I know there were a lot of people out there, a lot of track workers cutting grooves in the track to get rid of the weepers. That was the guy at NASCAR I was talking with. He was saying that was going to be the drinking word of the day. It was weepers. We're going to have a whole lot of problems, kind of reminiscent of 2008 when they jammed this race against the Oscars, and then it ended up being going late into the night, and ultimately it was postponed to the next day. And so that kind of split the audience there for LA's viewership. It was reminiscent of that. But in this case here, I at least from me, I didn't really pay attention to the broadcast because I think that's the whole purpose of going to the track is so you don't have to listen to the broadcast. But I didn't notice a lot of discussion of weepers as much, and I didn't notice as much of stuff trailing out from underneath the safer barriers, which was a serious problem at Darlington in 2019. But yeah, I think they handled it really well. It was drizzling more and more when we got down to the last 5 minutes before they were trying to start the Xfinity race on Saturday. But they, doggone it, they're going to get those cars out there and at least do a couple pace laps if they at all could. And then unfortunately, yeah, the rain picked up. Turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Jeremy Clements. I think that salvaged a decent run out of him. He actually got a top 20, I believe. But it didn't seem like that was going to be the situation. It looked like he was going to be on the website here when he had some kind of electrical issue. There was word of something hot in the car that seemed like it was affecting Jeremy in the car. They ended up pushing the thing behind the wall. They did have to start the tail end of the field and did ultimately roll off in the 38th spot in the Production Alliance Group 300 on Sunday evening. But of course, as we all know, the rain did pick up. They brought the cars back down pit road. And that was about the end of the racing that day. So at that point, I wanted to check out the fan zone sometime during the weekend, and I figured Saturday was going to be a pretty good opportunity to do that, just in case there was anybody that was sometimes I get people that are viewers of the website, or Patreon supporters or something like that. And I actually met a number of them the track, but much like in last year, I seemed to meet most of them in the infield versus in the fan zone this time around. But very happy to meet and talk with a number of people there. I decided to go to the fan zone. But of course, this again kind of draws the issue of how spread out everything is at the Fontana track here. And what you have to do is, because there's no tunnel between the media area in the entrance of turn 1 and the fan zone, which is behind the main grandstands there, you have to make this big U-turn. You have to go all the way up along the entire length of pit road to the tunnel that's right behind pit road at turn 4. And then actually, once you get to the other side of that, the fan zone itself is way down the other direction. So you're basically, I don't know how long of a walk is. I didn't bring like a step counter. Probably should have. It would have been interesting to track it. But it must have been, oh gosh, it might have only been half an hour, but somehow it felt a lot longer than that. But finally getting down there, and luckily the weather wasn't too bad during that. Again, the coat I was wearing kind of held up with it, and luckily Last Bro was back there too, so we kind of hung out there for a bit. Checked out some of the merch haulers and stuff like that. A lot of the people that were working at those haulers, they were digging deep. There was these nice young ladies that were working over at the Joe Gibbs Racing hauler. And I thought they were wearing mittens. And it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Because, I kept hearing everybody was trying to find where you can buy mittens at these tracks. And they kept saying, no, we don't have any. And luckily, it was getting that crazy. Nobody had gloves or anything. And this was definitely gloves kind of weather. There were some times, working on the phone, it was hard to kind of hold it. Luckily, I brought mine with me there. But, again, very nearly didn't. Wasn't sure exactly what the situation was going to be. But the track workers there, it looked like they were wearing mittens, but actually were wearing socks. They had taken some of the Denny Hamlin and like Martin Truex socks and were just wearing those as gloves because it was just so cold. You can have a space heater, I imagine, in those trailers, probably for your lower body, but your core, your upper body is still relatively exposed to the elements there. And I know you got kind of that roof a little bit, but yeah, it had to be really chilly for them. But they were keeping their spirits up. And there were a lot of people, there's a lot of foot traffic going by and people checking it out, which was really cool to see. And I was very impressed by that. So we kind of checked that all out, went through there, and right when they postponed the race, the bottom completely dropped out. Like, I know I said that when the snow fell, but this time the bottom dropped out with the rain, and it was just an absolute gully washer. And this happened the moment I started kind of going back over to the media center. So I had about a half an hour of just being completely exposed to the rain. And everybody else does too. And at this point, everybody's scattering. Everybody's getting to their cars, just getting the hell out of there. And for some reason, the moment it started intensifying, like, I was just immediately soaked. I think I passed that my outerwear had a threshold that was like here. And then once that rain went, I guess we were like right up against it. And then I guess once the storm hit, it just kind of prepped up there, and then I was just soaked. I can't overstate this. I felt like I had literally just fallen off a ship. Like, it was insane. Like, I mean, and I know everybody else out there was feeling the same thing. So I'm scurrying back, and I'm thinking, I was like, okay, I'm glad I don't have my computer with me. I'm glad I dropped that off in the media center, because the zipper where my computer actually goes in there is broken. So I have to kind of clutch it shut. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I can get it from there to the car, it'll be okay and it won't be a problem. So I'm just thinking this and, just kind of taking my mind off of how wet I am there. But I'm going down along that way and going down to the media center and finally make it down there. And by the time I get there, everybody else is gone. Everybody is. I mean, the overflow of the media. It's just nobody's there. I mean, they've packed up. They left minutes ago, I'm sure. So that's when I took that one picture where I have like the hoodie on and I just look like a wet cat. Like I'm just sitting there just like this. And I took my hat off, and I don't know how well it showed up on camera, but I took my hat off and it actually felt like twice as heavy because the bill on this thing just soaked up water. I'm sure it's just cardboard in here or something. But luckily, I mean, it made it through that pretty well. So got the stuff packed up, got the hell out of the track. And actually, pretty much once I got out of there, then the rain stopped. So I felt really silly at that point. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should just hold up somewhere and waited for the rain to ease up. But this was a storm that didn't look like it was going to stop. And certainly had no idea if it was going to change anything on Sunday. So at this point here, it's like, okay, we got to just get the hell back to the hotel and just change clothes. So Last Bro got back to the car really quick, which was good. I didn't want him getting stuck in all this stuff either. So we got back there. We got back to the hotel really quick, changed clothes, got that taken care of. And at that point too, even after taking a shower, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be sick as a dog on Sunday. And I was just waiting for it. But luckily we didn't. And that I'm glad that turned out. And I know there's probably a lot of people that were not feeling too hot on Sunday for sure. But we got through that okay. So that was good. So that was a bullet dodge there. We just kind of hung out, watched some movies over there. I'll tell you this, probably the one thing we listened to more than anything this entire weekend, I know it's way off topic, those videos, those deep fake videos where they have the presidents sounding like they're arguing over video games, those things are hilarious. Like, I mean, we were listening to those. I think we listened to those like the entire trip down and most of the trip back because there's just so many of those posted in the last week and a half. That was just crazy. So, yeah, we kind of just watched, I don't know, just stuff like that and got ready for Sunday. So, okay, so now they got the Sunday doubleheader, and that's going to be a whole lot of, they're going to do that, and they're going to have the Cup race first, and they're going to do the Xfinity race afterwards, which is cool. We haven't had a night race at Fontana in quite a while. Haven't had a race where you could really see, a really cool sunset at the track or anything like that. And you hope that you could certainly still have that, even though the ceiling was just so low this entire weekend with the storm that was blowing through. But we got through Saturday okay. Slept in again on Sunday because, again, everything's going to be kind of a later start. Green flag was 12:30, 12:45, thereabouts. It was still very cold on Sunday. It was it wouldn't surprise me how many people either decided not to go back on Sunday or just, maybe waited in their cars to the last minute. But I will say this, there wasn't even a drop. There wasn't even like sprinkling at any point that I felt, at least not the points that I was out there. And I was outside for quite a while during Sunday there. And so that was good. But what was really cool about it, and I think something that was helped by the fact that the Xfinity race was after the Cup race rather than before, is a lot of the Xfinity drivers were hanging around on the grid. The grid is always great at Fontana in particular because it is so wide and so long. You could fit so many people out there. And they seem to have a pretty loose policy with who can be out there before the race starts, which is nice. So you got a lot of fans out there mixing it up. You got a lot of people that are doing their promo photos with the cars and stuff like that. And a lot of them were the Xfinity drivers. First two drivers I ran into were Ryan Vargas and Garrett Smithley, who had missed the show for the Xfinity race there. And although both of them were understandably disappointed of not having their shot at making the race, they knew that was very much a possibility, and they're already looking ahead to Vegas. Vargas, in particular, is very excited about the prospects coming up here with the reorganized Mike Harmon team. And again, don't forget that Vargas had a pretty solid run with him at Portland last year when he was kind of juggling rides, and the JD Motorsports team was kind of experimenting with different drivers there. I know the Harmon team had a lot of problems, very nearly put Brennan Poole into sole possession of the NASCAR championship before the last race of the season there, with all the problems the 74 team had, or the 47 at the time, 74 now. And that on top of it, it's them scaling back from 2 cars to 1. But I think in Atlanta in particular, he says definitely watch out for the 40, the Harmon effort, the CHK effort out there. I think they can really kind of move the needle a little bit with that program. But they gotta they have to get a chance to actually qualify. They didn't really get any laps at all at Daytona. They didn't get a chance to even get on the track at Fontana. So their season starts next week. And Smithley's in the same situation there with the BJ McLeod effort there. And I think on the BJ McLeod side, I think it's great with the great run that Anthony Alfredo had before the wreck at the end of Daytona. I think that shows that they have some potential this season, and hopefully Smithley will be the benefit of that. Both of them are great guys. I always seem to run into them at most of these races. I love doing races where they have Xfinity as part of it, because I think they have a great group of drivers in there. So it was great to rub elbows with them out there. Among other drivers, Austin Hill was out there on pit road. I think I saw, what was it? I think it was Vargas congratulated him on the win at Daytona. Riley Herbst was down there. I got to congratulate him on the 10th place run at Daytona, the 500, and he was really cool about that. The atmosphere was really good, and I think that after everything that had happened kind of up to that point, I think that really kind of added to everything else, and of course, the excitement of the race building to that point. And the anticipation of who was going to be the driver to win the last Cup race there. You think of guys like Rusty Wallace winning the last race at Riverside, or Benny Parsons winning the last race in Ontario. Unfortunately, LA is a really fickle sports town. It seems to be a particularly fickle motorsports town. I don't know why exactly, because you got a lot of drivers that are from this region that have gone on to, much better things. That seems to continue with, what's going on here. I guess it, perhaps in these other cases, much like with the Auto Club track there, the value of the track's property becomes so much more than the track. What are you going to do? Are you really going to keep running races there, or are you going to try something different? So a difficult situation, but I think that I liked that they had like the one last time or one more time banners on everything there. It was interesting that they didn't really put that on the merch. Like none of their shirts like had anything that said like any reference to this being the last race there. I thought that was a strange choice. I thought they would have had done something where they kind of showed like famous moments from the track's history. A lot of the pre-race ceremonies and pre-race celebrations felt very much like, oh, we'll see you again next year. Like it was kind of like that, where they would do the 5-wide salute, which is cool, which is great. I mean, people love that. It wouldn't surprise. I mean, it makes me wonder if they do follow through and turn this into a short track, if they're going to try to still do that, or if they'll even be able to. I assumed that they were going to like build something off of the current front stretch and then just kind of shorten it off, kind of the opposite of what they did with Richmond. I don't know. We'll find out on that, I guess. A lot of excitement. It was cool to kind of, I just heard a little bit of Michael Rooker's interview there when he showed up to be the Grand Marshal. You said, he'd be absolutely interested in the Days of Thunder too. So I don't know how good that would be. I'm kind of thinking I think it's one of those movies like Twister where, like you make a sequel to it. I mean, it's just like, how good could it possibly be? It's not going to be better than the original. You kind of know that going into it. But I mean, I guess the success of Top Gun Maverick, I'm sure, has made people kind of reevaluate that for sure. And I'm sure Tom Cruise isn't going to sign on to something, that's going to be, too bad, especially if it's something that's a project that he's so, identified with. I didn't even have a problem with The Mummy, to be perfectly honest. I know that's a meme because of how much they botched that one trailer. I thought it was a good movie, but maybe that says more about me than than the movie, because there's a lot of movies I like that are crap. So, but yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, and also this is the first time. The last 2 times I've gone to this track, I couldn't get into the red carpet thing, and doggone it, man, I was determined. This year was going to be the year I was going to get over the red carpet over the driver's meeting thing, and I did it. I made it out there. I did it for you guys. So we got it out there. We got out there and we did it. I was able to see Han from Fast and the Furious. What was it? They had all kinds of other people down there. It was crazy. But seeing the drivers come in there for the drivers meeting and all that was great. Got some good pictures down there. The atmosphere there was cool. So it was good. I'm glad I didn't leave that on the table and not do that, because that was one thing I was kind of aiming for. Did that. Went back to the media center to get ready for the start of the race. I kind of watched the pace laps more or less from pit road initially, and then kind of went back into the media center there to make sure to track the battle at the back of the field, because there tends to be races where you have several laps before somebody falls out. That was certainly the case in this race last year, and there's other situations where this kind of played into it too. So we go into the Cup race itself. Qualifying, of course, rained out. Ricky Stenhouse is on the outside pole, so you get things going there. And one driver I was watching very early on, I was anticipating Ty Gibbs having a good showing. It was kind of fun seeing him on pit road with the Monster Energy girls there, and he looked like he looked like the cat that just ate the bird there. So I was thinking, oh, maybe he might. I still stand by my prediction that if he wins a race, especially in these first 10 races, I think he's gonna be very hard to slow down. And the dam may just be breached at that point. He just starts rattling them off. Probably could easily say that of Noah Gragson as well. I just think Gibbs is more likely to with the organization he's running for. But yeah, like watching the start of the race there, Cody Ware fell to the back of the field, which was unfortunate. He was able to get an 11th place starting spot there because of his great run at Daytona. Rick Ware Racing in general having a great weekend at Daytona. Unfortunately, in this one, certainly for the 51 team, they had problems. At one point, Ware was radioing that the car was just undrivable. And this is a track that will just be a misery out there if you can't be handling that thing around there. So I feel bad for him on that. He fell towards the back of the pack there, was behind the pack by open track at one point. But then you had, of course, the very first surprise in the last place battle, and that was Kyle Larson, your defending winner of this race, going behind the wall. And so at that point, hearing the 5 go behind the wall, just took the headset off, hopped out of the seat, ran up the aisle, went down, and again, the Cup garage is not directly behind the media center. That's the Xfinity garage. So you got to go way back down there again. And I'll say this: I was very pleasantly surprised that my boots still allowed me to kind of get around quick enough that I could get over there before the 5 car would get back out. He ultimately did spin 17 laps, lost 17 laps during this particular issue. It appeared to be some kind of wiring harness. That's at least what it looked like to me. It definitely looked like something like a. I'm not exactly sure. It looked like something off the top of the engine there. But they had a backup one on hand, and they were just hustling, kind of getting that all hooked up. Sounded like they were concerned that he dropped a cylinder, but once they fixed whatever this was, it was back to full song again. In fact, he gained one of his laps back on the track without the benefit of a lucky dog or a caution there at that point. Kind of reminiscent of what we saw to Daniel Hemrick in this race last year, where he lost 4 laps in the early stages of the race and gained all of them back. That was not to be for Larson, although Cliff Daniels had them put some Las Vegas setups in there and just use it as a test session, and still told Larson to drive the hell out of the car just to make sure they got accurate notes on that. Does that mean Larson's going to be good for Vegas? We'll see. I mean, maybe that's one other thing that, it's definitely another point in favor of trying to get as much practice as possible. Obviously, in this case, weather played 100% of the role in that. It wasn't that it wasn't NASCAR's fault on this. But yeah, we had a situation there with him, and took him out of contention, and that had to be disappointing. But I'm sure he's happy to have at least had one win there before they closed the track in its current configuration here. So Larson falls by the wayside, and then a little bit later on, AJ Allmendinger has an incident off of turn 2, slaps the inside wall, knocks the entire left rear of the car cattywampus there, and limps around the track. About the same time this happens, Martin Truex is coming off pit road. I see him kind of going by on pit road, and it looks like the fender is pushed in on the wheel. And that's what I was, at first I was like, oh man, somebody actually probably ran into him. I didn't think he could push in one of these fenders quite that easily, because these cars seem pretty durable. As it turns out, it wasn't a pushed-in fender. It was a loose wheel. Wheel comes off down the back straightaway. And so for the first time this year, we have the new reduced penalties for a loose wheel here played out there, and that ultimately took the 19 out of contention. we'll see what the effect is going to be on that program the next couple of weeks here with what it's 2 crew members that are now suspended there if they do that. Still a step in the right direction. I mean, I still think they're coming down awfully hard on them, but obviously you can't have these cars losing wheels all the time either. So there's other things to look at the same time. But when Truex's deal was getting worked out, I was already going back out to where Allmendinger's car was. I don't think I had actually fully made it back to the media center at that point, but I saw a 16 drive behind the wall, so clearly his day was done. Didn't catch up to him for the interview, but Front Stretch did, thankfully, so I'm glad they got a quote out of him. He was clearly, I mean, I remember when he finished last the most recent time at Sears Point in 2018, you know, pretty much once he did his TV interview, he wasn't really willing to do another interview after that. And that seemed to certainly be the case here on this one. And I don't hold it against him. I don't blame him. I'm sure he was disappointed, and especially as one of those Californians trying to win the race. And the colleague team really trying to get some extra ground under him this year. So, you know, we'll see. But I mean, it was fun to kind of write about him. And I know I kind of retraced a lot of steps in the caption, but I'm still constantly amazed at the journey he's taken and, you know, how he's been able to bounce back into the Xfinity series, you know, go back to the Xfinity and back into Cup again with a better situation than he ever had when he was in the Cup Series, you know, for JTG Daugherty, which is interesting because this all comes together right after JTG finally gets their second Cup win with Stenhouse in the 500. So that became the focus there. The first interview that I got of the entire weekend, I mean, I just talked with Vargas and Smithley. I didn't really do an interview. First interview I did was with Ty Dillon. His car pulled behind the wall in the same spot that Larson's did earlier. Car conked out down the straightaway. Just terrible break for him. I feel really bad for him. I actually picked up one of his hats at the merch hauler on Saturday. But you know, I was just thrilled that they made any merch for him. I haven't seen anything out of the 77 car that they made. They always make Corey LaJoie's stuff. They never seem to do anything with that team. But I guess now having a full-time driver's changed that. Yeah, so he fell out of the race there. He was still in the car for a while longer. I was interested he was still in there. I didn't hear NASCAR declare him out. It was probably about in there 10 laps or so that he was there. And so I got him right when he climbed out of the car. He was very nice to, you know, speak with me here. It's the first time I've seen him since Phoenix last year, where we presented him with Gito's incredible drawing that was done of him before his last start in the 42 car for Petty GMS. You know, a fantastic job there with drawing there. And hopefully, I was about to ask him about it in the interview, but I decided to just keep it short. I'm sure I sensed this, that, you know, certainly once people fell out of the race, I think they want to get out of there quicker than ever with the cold weather. I know Denny mentioned this in his interview. He was in his podcast that he's looking for 70-degree weather as quickly as he can get to it. I'm sure that was the case for a lot of these guys. But talked with Ty Dillon, and from there went down to pit road. Our fantasy picks between Lastbro and myself. I did pick Kyle Busch to win the race. So basically at the end there, I was pretty glued to pit road and seeing if Kyle could pull it off. Michael McDowell tried some different pit strategy and stayed out there up front for a bit longer, but Kyle reeled him in and got the lead back. Great run out of the Trackhouse efforts up to that point. Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez looked fantastic. Remember Suarez in this race last year very nearly got his first win in this before they even made it to Sears Point. Was very much a factor, and Kyle Larson, I believe, made the winning pass on him down the front straightaway there. Unfortunately, in this case, Suarez had a pit road penalty. Chastain looked really good, swept the first two stages, but Kyle Busch just, you know, seemed to be gaining and gaining during the longer runs at the end, and ultimately was too much to hold back. And so for the first time in the sponsor's history, Lucas Oil has a victory in the Cup Series. I know everybody's talking about Richard Childress and Kyle's first run with the 8 car, and that is huge. That's a huge story and absolutely should be. But I think the other aspect of it, of this 80th start, at least among recorded starts, for Lucas Oil, that has always sponsored small teams in general. They have a long history of sponsoring Larry Gunselman's team and Judy Donlavey Racing and Morgan McClure Motorsports towards the end of their career. Only very recently, and never since 2019, had they sponsored Richard Childress Racing. They only have about 3 starts with that program. and never got a win in any of those. 6 times they finished in last place among those 80 starts. And then Kyle Busch goes out there and wins with him. So I was very happy for the company. I would have loved to ask him about it, but by the time his media availability happened, the cars were on the track for the Xfinity race, so I had to kind of cut and run and get Rowan for that. I hated that I couldn't ask him that because I really wanted to. I don't know if anybody else did ask him. I haven't checked the transcript yet, but I'd love to get his thoughts on that. And I'd love to get the thoughts on the sponsor as well. I was looking for the representative there on pit road, but missed a connection on that one. But that would have been nice if the Xfinity race wasn't after that. I feel like I could have bird dogged that story more and jumped on that. But hopefully that'll come up here in the next few days. So we'll see what the situation is. So congratulations to Kyle Busch there on the victory. A very well deserved. He had a great battle there with Joey Logano at one point, who was last bro's pick. So that was kind of the feather in my cap there. I was standing on pit road there, and Pockrass was there as well. One of the empty stalls next to where Kyle Larson's stall was, and watched the finish from there. So that was pretty cool. So congratulations to Kyle Busch. Again, first victory for him with Richard Childress. We talked about this on the show here and how strong of a start he's had. The great run at the Clash. Even though the Clash is such a unique event, the teamwork he showed with Austin Dillon I thought was very impressive. The performance he put out there. I know it seems obvious saying this in hindsight, but it seemed like everybody was talking about it, even at the time, that was a good start to it. And then, of course, the Daytona 500, he's already, was very public saying under the 98 rules, he would have won the 500 because he led lap 200. Unfortunately, the multiple restarts led to a different outcome there, and really is about the only reason that he's not currently leading the point standings at this moment. But we'll see what happens in Las Vegas, where he's running all 3 races. Still not a fan of that. Still don't like it. I don't care what people say on that. I stand by that, and I don't even care the fact that he, even with being helpful in my own fantasy league, I'm still not crazy about it. I'm sure it's going to be all Kyle all the time at his home track next week when he runs the Truck Series for his own team, when he runs the Xfinity for the Kaulig team, which should be Landon Castle. And then, of course, his Cup effort as he seeks his second consecutive Cup victory. One thing I think that will be very interesting as well is the fact that he got out of the car and he's wearing a uniform that just has a Chevrolet logo on it. And that all these different sponsors that he has just have the small logos on it. I don't know if this is an economy issue, if this is a situation with, teams just trying to save money. Because Denny Hamlin's been very public about teams trying to save money and realizing there's very few new ways that they can do so. But I thought it was kind of interesting that they didn't have a standalone uniform for the Lucas sponsorship or these other ones there. I know they have a lot of different partners. He's already run a different sponsor in each of these 3 races, including the Clash so far. But I thought that was interesting. Because I'm so used to seeing that when, and we've seen this from Childress before, where they've had races where they didn't really have full sponsorship and they have a company like Chevrolet Accessories on the car. We saw this out of Ganassi's team too before he sold his charter. Ross Chastain drove a car that had just like Chevy accessories, just the Chevy logo on it. And I expected if they were going to, wear a uniform like that, that was going to be kind of the situation. But I guess you can it's easy to forget that Richard Childress Racing is still ultimately Richard Childress's own team. That this started out as a single car organization that Childress drove for himself, and he probably wore the same uniform from one week to the next. So maybe it's just a throwback to that. I noticed a lot of the people that were supporting the team, a lot of people getting pictures with Kyle, were wearing older hats that were from the 50th anniversary of Richard Childress Racing, which was like 2019. So, I get it. You're saving money as best you can. I totally understand it. And honestly, I think older merch is cooler, but that's just me. But there's that part of it too. But I thought it was interesting. I still thought it was interesting, especially with Kyle Busch. I thought that there'd be a change there, and he'd have kind of like what he did with Gibbs, where he'd have a different uniform for every flavor of M&Ms that they're doing for each week. But Childress, again, I can't help but admire it. It's a smaller organization. They don't put a lot of money towards that, apparently, at least from what we're seeing so far. Maybe that changes in these weeks coming up here, but at least off the top of it here. But am I surprised that Kyle won this early? No, he's still Kyle Busch. And I still said when this move happened that I thought he made this move because he wanted to win the Daytona 500, and he damn near did. I think he played it out perfectly. I think that was his best overall performance in the 500. Not his best finish, but his best overall performance in the 500. Easily. I've seen him lose it so many times with those blown tires or just bad calls or just bad moves. But this one here, he didn't put a wheel wrong. It was circumstances out of his control in this one. But that's how it shakes out. So yeah, I think going into Vegas, he's going to be very dangerous. I think it would not be surprising if he does win again next week. It wouldn't be surprising if he wins all 3 races next week. So we'll see. I'd love to be proven wrong on that because I think Vegas is a great track. I loved covering it the last couple fall races. We're not going to be covering it in person next week. Or next scheduled trackside coverage is going to be Sears Point in June. But I thought that was really really exciting and really cool and a good send off. Kyle Busch, of course, won his first Cup race at Fontana back in 2005 when he was driving a Chevy. Back when he was driving for Hendrick Motorsports. So perhaps things kind of go full circle in that sense there. And of course, the track that also had Jimmy Johnson's first win, and Kevin Harvick's slingshot move on Johnson in 2013. Lots of different moments that have happened over the years. And this certainly came to a head with the Xfinity race that followed the Cup race. The Xfinity race came together very, very quickly. I basically had just enough time to take pictures of the cars coming into the garage area with the noses all, battered and just sand blasted off. I mean, it was fascinating to look at. I believe the 12 pictures I shared are the only ones that I have of that. I'm going to still go. There's a ton of pictures I haven't shared yet, and I want to kind of share those. I'll post those on Twitter. It'd be easier than showing them on here because it probably won't show as well. There was a lot of... it was interesting to see that. I heard some complaints. Even Ty Dillon mentioned this about how sandy the track was at the beginning, and then that kind of dissipated. And Hamlin brought this up on his podcast that a lot of people further back in the field seem to have that sandy effect worse than others. None worse so than J.J. Yaley there with his windshield also blasted at the same time there. A lot of discussion was brought up about the cat that was on the track. I did not see that. I don't have any direct information about that, but I've heard more and more reports about this, about a cat that was wandering on the track and was unfortunately hit by one of the cars. I don't know who it was. I know there were some people looking at my pictures thinking it was Blaney. I don't know that. Other reports I've heard say it was Logano. These things happen. I mean, there's, you think about Stephen Light hitting a gopher at Pocono. Derek Cope, story came up on him that he ran over a rabbit in Talladega in 1990. Unfortunately, sometimes wildlife of one nature or another ends up on the track. And NASCAR has had situations where they try to, make sure something like that doesn't happen. Like the fox they had at Pocono a while back, and now is ultimately their mascot. That was able to get kind of shooed off the track. But yeah, I don't have any additional information on that story there, and it sounds like that's become a bit of a kind of a detective thing that people are trying to figure out there. But unfortunately, I don't really have anything new to really add to that. I believe it was in turns 3 and 4, wasn't it? That was probably the part of the track I was around the least. This weekend. I was more around the front straightaway in 1 and 2. So that was kind of more my area this weekend. But it wasn't too long until the Xfinity race started. It kind of caught me off guard. I had just enough time to talk with BJ McLeod. I got an interview with him. I'm going to post that in a standalone interview. I haven't posted it yet. But he was really cool to talk with. And of course, the interesting thing that happened at that point was the discovery of the teams pulling off wraps. Now, this was something I thought was kind of strange because I don't remember this from previous races. I know that in the past, when the Xfinity Series, if we didn't have the rain delay, it would have been different, of course. But, they would roll, the California car onto the truck, and they'd bring the Vegas car out or whatever the next race is going to be, and they start working on those in the garage area and then load up later in the week. I've seen that happen before. I think this is probably the first time I've seen teams pull wraps off of cars. In the Cup Series, I believe the only example of that was BJ McLeod's team. And I was gonna interview JJ Yaley. He ended up talking with somebody else. So I kind of went over to BJ because I don't want to miss him, because I missed him at this race last year. But I talked with him on that, and in the background of the audio, you could hear these people just ripping the thing off. And what was interesting is, like, they didn't have another wrap underneath it, but they were going to get a head start on it. Apparently, Circle B Diecast, I guess, is the sponsor for Vegas. I did not see them put the new wrap on there. I am assuming they're probably either did that yesterday if they were still at the track, or maybe on their way to Vegas instead. These small teams kind of handle things differently there. But it was very interesting. So, but yeah, the other interesting thing, and this was going to be our show and tell segment, but I think this is probably the best time to bring it up there. I did ask him, I said, look, I couldn't help but ask, yeah, are you guys just going to throw that away? Like, you just going to throw that wrap away? And it's like, yeah, no, it's like, look, there's a whole lot of it in the trash can there. So right here, folks, this is obviously not all of it, because wrapping an entire car is going to be entirely too much space. But luckily, I did have my backpack with me. And although it did let water through earlier in the weekend, it did not let me down in this case, that it was big enough that I could fit this big wad of the wrap of the 78 car. I still don't know what the hell I'm going to do with this. But if there's even a way to untangle it, because it's all mished together. I believe this is part of the quarter panel, and this yellow part here is the roof number. But yeah, this is off the 78 car. If you see the picture that I posted there, I actually took one of the ones off the ground before they put it in the can. And yeah, I talked to the guy. I said, he's like, look, hey, you want to? It's like, you want to do? It's like you they literally are going to throw it away. So the can had more of them in there. And somebody else had thrown a beer in there, and it was kind of all messy and all that. So I didn't want to drag that in the house. But yeah, here it is. I mean, I'm going to see if I can kind of untangle it a little bit. Obviously it's all stuck to itself, and it was kind of just on its own. But yeah, I think this looks like a pretty good part of the roof number, which if I can get that pulled off of there, I could, if I really was really patient on this, I could probably get that off of there. Let's see. Watch in amazement as I pull tape apart here. It's actually, it's not as strong of tape as I thought it was at the time. It's actually not bad. Let's see if we can get an 8 out of this. This looks like, I think this, is this a door number? That would be really sick. If I got the door number on this, I know this logo, it's hard to tell on this, but yeah. Goo Gone Spray. Yes, good call. That would probably be a good one too. But yeah, so I did not let you guys down. I did grab this. Yeah, I may do something with this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to see if I can untangle it. And then if I can't untangle it, I'm going to figure something else out with it there. But we may do something with this. But they were just going to throw it away. They literally threw it away. I saw the guy do it. And they weren't the only team. The other teams in the Xfinity race, and then we'll talk about the Xfinity race here next in a minute. There were multiple teams. It was a 27 car for Jeb Burton. What was interesting on that is they kept the same base. They kept the door numbers. They just took the quarter panel and hood sponsors off. In fact, if you look at the picture I took of the 27, you can see the State Water Heaters outline on the hood of the car. But they just took that off, and I think Alsco is on board for this weekend because they've sponsored the Xfinity race. For Raja Karuth's car, they peeled everything off. I think they had they went all the way down to just like BJ McLeod's, where it was just the panels on the car. So that was kind of crazy. And then Joey Gase's was the most interesting. Brad Perez was over there and helping the crew out there. They actually had the Vegas wrap underneath it. So I was able to get some shots of it. And they were very cool about letting me take pictures of it and posting it. And so that was cool. Gorgeous scheme. I mean, the one for Fontana was pretty good. It had like a CHP theme to it. But the Vegas organ donor scheme is really nice. If you haven't seen the pictures on there, definitely check that out. So we got the leak on that one for you guys. But the Emerling Gase team, they got some good schemes out there. But yeah, let's see. I don't know. I don't want to tear this. It's interesting. The adhesive, it feels like kind of like a garbage bag kind of material a little bit. I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know what that is. They didn't take the stuff off the nose. I don't know what the hell that is. But yeah. But I think I might be able to get this one undone. Let's see. Hang on here, folks. Let's see how far we can get with this here. If you don't mind a little bit of a departure here from our normal festivities. We'll talk about the Xfinity race here shortly. and definitely have some. I have some very particular thoughts about the track itself and the way we kind of wrap things up for the weekend here. So stay tuned for that as I mess with this for another minute or so. Let's see. It's a little ASMR for you guys. Let's see. I don't know. It's probably going to stretch pretty good. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to come off. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how far I can get. But yeah, I like the Goo Gone idea. That might be it. We might have to use a whole bottle of it on this thing. I don't know if that's going to come loose. Because they were just obviously, they kind of pulled them off. They kind of would lean into it and kind of pull it off like that. And then they just kind of balled it up and put it on the ground. And I'm like, whoa. It's like... I mean, it was so weird, and nobody else seemed to be noticing it. I guess it happens more often than I think it does. But yeah, I was just like, hey, this is you guys gonna finish that basically? Okay, here we go. Maybe we have both digits here. So obviously this would be the 78 car for the Live Fast team. Dude, if I got his nameplate on this, that would be sick. I'd probably make have to laminate that or something. I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, it's starting to look more uniform on this side. Oh yeah, okay, maybe we got a little bit of both digits here. Okay, there we go. Oh, dude, if we can get like at least the number. See, you didn't think it would get better than the Pit Road banner. Well, just watch, folks. Just watch. So. That, damn. Yeah, that part's sponged pretty good. Let's see. I kind of threw another ball of something in the middle here. There we go. There we go. Let's try to get this out of the inside here. People tuning in right now are going to be so confused. You'd be like, what the hell is he doing? Okay, yeah, I could probably... There we go. I think that's a separate piece, so we can pull that out. Ah, here we go. Oh, look at this, folks. Look at this. Yeah. Now, I guess the trick, probably the way to do it would probably be to get... probably get a big piece of something and stick this to it. Because, I mean, you're just not going to be able to put this anywhere. But there is... Oh, hang on. Let's get this corner up. Kind of straighten that out. Oh, look at this. This is like... Look at that. Look at that, folks. There is part of the lower half of the 78. Right there. I think it's the door number. I don't think it's the roof number. That looks too wide to be the roof number. But hey, look at that. Buried treasure, folks. So hey, let this, if you find a way in the garage area, and especially for an Xfinity race, like this is of course a cup wrap, but that was look out for any teams that are pulling wraps off, because yeah, they're literally just throwing this away. Can you imagine? They just threw this away. Like, this is off of a car running the last race at Fontana. It wasn't the last place finisher. Add heat. Good call, Nicholas. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is going somewhere in here, folks. Somewhere in here. This is going in. We're gonna unball the rest of this. I think that's gonna be the plan now. We're gonna unball the rest of it, and we're gonna figure out what we got here. But yeah, it's just got regular. The adhesive's got like it's hard to tell. Kind of looks like it's got glue embedded in it there. But yeah, that's undeniably. That's really cool. I can't believe they're throwing this away. I'm so glad I grabbed this. I wasn't sure what I had when I grabbed it. I thought it was the roof number, but I think that's a door number for sure. I think. I'll have to look. But yeah. And then this part here. Oh, dude, this might be the nameplate. Oh, shit. Hang on. Oh, sorry. Oh, we got kids watching. Hang on. This part here in the middle might be the name. This looks like it. Dude. They didn't peel up. Yeah, the nose they were still working on, but obviously the nose decals were all blitzed up. That'd be crazy. Watching a kid at Christmas. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what it looks like. It's like, make sure, Timmy, to pull off all the tape on your package. It's a little... Oh, I think I got the nameplate on here. Shit. Let's see. Oh, dude. Yeah. Yep. This part here doesn't really look like something. Ooh, I don't know if I can get that out of there. It's on there. It's on there pretty good. Look at that. See, right here. Right there. That's what I'm looking at. That's got to be, yeah. Dude, get a thing off of the defending LASCAR Cup Series champion. Are you kidding me? Of course I'm not. Of course I'm going to root through the... I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to root through the trash for it, but I did get this one off the ground. It's like, yeah, you got to finish that? But yeah, they weren't going to do anything with it. And I posted on Twitter. I mean, I don't know if anybody else went over there, rated the can, and got the rest of it. I hope somebody did. I hope word spread and people kind of went down there and checked it out. Because, yeah, it was right by the Cup Garage, the far end of it. Yeah, we're going to have to at least get this one out. Ooh, this one's kind of... I kind of pulled off some skinnier parts here. There we go. Okay, this part here. It's like that scene out of Spider-Man 3. It's like, some of these things, Peter, are hard to get unstuck. It's like, is that too old of a reference these days? I can't even tell. I remember going to see that and being underwhelmed, but there you go. Yeah, shoot. Can I get this corner off of here? Damn. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's kind of a layer on top of it here. Okay, that's good. So maybe I can pull it off of that. Okay. Nope. I don't know if that's going to come off. I don't know. I don't want to tear that. Yeah, I don't want to tear that. It's awfully good. But yeah, I do see a full name print here. Yeah. Let's kind of undo that. Let's kind of pull that part. And kind of move this. It's just, I need to get this back half off of the front half. Ooh, that part there is, I don't know where the border is. Yeah, that might require a more precise. Shoot, where is that? Yeah, there we go. Oh, can that do it? There we go. This would be another good reveal here if I could get it. If I could stick the landing on this one. I don't think that's gonna be it. No, I don't think that's it. I need to find the part that's stuck on the back of this. It's too close. Too close. Yeah, I might have to do this after the show. Let me I'll show you what I got here. You saw a little glimpse of it there, but I'll show you what I got that I'm looking at here. Yeah, so here you go, folks. So you got BJ's name here, right all the way around this little bit here. So I just got to find a way to kind of untangle this. But these two ends are so close together, I think it would tear this off, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, so we at least got part of the door number. This might even be part of the number. It looks like it might be next to it. And at least one of the names. So I don't know which side, but hey, there you go. Yeah, does anybody know how to unwrap a wrap? Yeah, that's a good question. This part here is really sticky. This part that just came off. This is like, yeah. This is really, there you go. That's really on there. That's okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So we're definitely going to be, I think that might be more. If I get the rest, this might be, if this is the rest of that door number, that itself would be worth like hanging on to. Because yeah, look at this. So I'm kind of pulling the rest of this apart. There's definitely some number here. Like if it's the rest of this, or if it's maybe the other side. I mean, I had no way of knowing. I think I grabbed this from the driver's side. So unless they tossed it, one direction or another. But yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, and again, I can't overstate. This is only maybe a fifth I don't think even a quarter of the wrap. This is maybe like maybe a quarter of it. Actually, they bundled it so tightly it's possible. But yeah, so we got a name, we got a number, we got half one of the door numbers here. I mean, that's a really good start. That's a really good start. Even if that's it, that's fine. That's fine by me, man. So here's another one. If you tuned in late, here's part of the 78 off BJ McLeod's car that ran the last race of Fontana, and probably has a good amount of sand embedded in it. It certainly got smudged on the pavement there, but that's fine. That gives it character. This is this is going to be going. This is going in the room for sure. So big thanks to the crewman that was cool with there. I was talking with him on that and saying like, hey, can we? Yeah, you just getting rid of that? But okay, so where were we? It's getting warm in here already. I'm exerting myself already too much. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Wake up and look at all 3 dimensions. There you go. We got a nameplate. Yes, we do. Well, that's a 25-point penalty. Alrighty. Let's see. Let me do super chats. I saw a couple super chats coming up here. Thank you so much here, folks. We do have a few here. Alrighty. So first one here, Michael Jensen. Thank you for your super chat. Wow, thank you big time. In the latest WTF Fox, they missed Dinger's crash. MRN said AJ wrecked. Fox was showing a replay of a pass. 45 seconds later, they show AJ wreck as if it was live. The booth was quiet because they thought it was a replay. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I did notice that as well. I was actually, it did seem like it was a little bit kind of like BJ, my goodness. Like Clint Boyer's call of the Daytona 500 wreck at the end. It's like, oh, and they wreck. And like, just kind of him being that flat. I didn't think much of it, but it did seem a little bit off. Like they cut to it at like just the moment that the wreck happened. I don't know. I mean, a bit slipshod for sure. It would have been nice if, apparently it sounds like they didn't follow up with him at the infield care center either. Because I was getting some questions about, I said that he was going to the infield care center, but it's just standard procedure. I mean, I saw him, climb into the cart and go away. I mean, it wasn't like a really serious situation, at least as far as I could tell. But there was some confusion about that. And I think that just goes to show like how cursory the coverage is. It's strange. Like, I mean, they love the spectacle of a wreck. They just love that. But they don't want to talk anything about like, the driver or even to an extent of like what caused it, which is bizarre. In Allmendinger's case, it was just a chain reaction there off of turn 2. When you kind of see, the more helpful replay of it. But yeah, that was a bit off. There were some elements. I wasn't listening to that much of the broadcast. I tried to just tune it out, and at some point I just had to just leave the room because it's wonderful to have that license when you're at a track there personally. But that was kind of the case there too. But thank you for bringing that up, Michael. Yeah, that was distracting, and it was unfortunate that wasn't covered very well. Especially for a driver that that's really is very approachable. I mean, a driver that has a really strong fan base. You think that they would cover things a little more carefully, but maybe not. And again, I don't know what the limitation was there exactly. But yeah. Surreal Cereal, thank you for your super chat as well. Hey, Brock, huge fan of your stuff. Thank you very much. Quick question. Who would you say your favorite LASCAR champion has been? That's a very good question. I mean, whether it's like who as an individual driver or which season, because there's some seasons that have been really good. Bailey Curry's last year was a barn burner for the Xfinity one. I really enjoyed following it. It was that much more exciting. I almost had a moment. I had a moment. There was no way I was going to do it, but I almost thought of like doing like, that thing where in Formula One, they bring out like the sign when the guy's the champion and they have like, the pit board that they wave out on the track. I had like a certificate. I was going to wave it out over pit road, but there's no way you'd see it, and that would just get me in trouble. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But I was thinking about it. And I was like, yeah, that was going to be pretty crazy. But it was that was probably one that's up there. Definitely, in terms of a LASCAR champion, I mean, Jeff Green definitely stands out for having the all-time record, and also since I've had the good fortune of speaking with him, and that he had such a good sense of humor about it. I remember presenting him with that T-shirt in 2017 when he was on his way to getting 100 Xfinity Series last place finishes. He had 100 combined at that point, but not all in Xfinity until that October. But that was really cool. He was very cool about it. There's a lot of drivers I've met that have been either in contention for the title or not. I mean, BJ McLeod, just in his interview the other day, was very, was great in this interview, and I didn't have any problems there. So that was good to see. I haven't talked with him since Texas back in 2021. So I was glad to catch up with him there. So yeah, it's really hard to pick one. I may do a video on that at some point on like really close NASCAR championships and kind of capture that a little bit. But yeah, I think Jeff Green stands out. I mean, JD McDuffie, obviously, I'm very partial on that, but I think that my interest in JD is beyond just the NASCAR thing. It's kind of expanded beyond that to his career itself. But probably within the specific confines of NASCAR, yeah, I'd say Jeff Green's there. Michael McDowell is also a factor. I admit feeling a bit emotional when he won the 500. I thought that was just a wonderful way to bounce back from that. He had 34 last place finishes at that time, which was the most in the Cup Series. He still holds that record, although now I guess he's at 35. But then pulled off the win there and that. I thought that was really cool. And those are the moments, I told Rick Ware this, I tell some others as well. It's like, look, these are the stories we like following. It's not just who finishes last over and over again. That can get boring. Like you have somebody that finishes last, then they work their way up, they suddenly become contenders, and then it's somebody else that they get to put in last. Or maybe somebody who's in last place is a big name, a guy like a Chase Elliott or an Alex Bowman or very nearly a Kyle Larson in this the Cup Series race here. We could have had the first last place run for Hendrick Motorsports at Auto Club, but of course it turned out very differently. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on that one there. Alex Luft, happy birthday, Mario Andretti. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for the super chat as well. And yes, certainly the Indy legend there celebrating his birthday. I mean, again, so few figures are truly considered ageless, and he's definitely certainly one of them there. I mean, you got. I can't help but think of the whole the Mario Andretti AJ Foyt thing from 500 Days there, where Darrell Waltrip was kind of stirring the pot there about who is a better driver than who and so forth. So yeah, I think that's interesting. But yeah, certainly happy birthday to Mario for sure. Beast of Metal, thank you for your super chat as well. I will say, seeing Kyle Busch win the last race at the track where he got ejected over a hypocritical application of the master settlement at the start of his career was strangely satisfying. I'm trying to think about that. Was that when he was in the Truck Series and he wasn't old enough or something like that? I'm trying to think about that there. But I agree, though. I think that, seeing Kyle Busch win at a track where he has history at it is a great way to cap off that history for sure. But thank you definitely for the super chat. You don't have to, just give me a little bit more context there. You don't have to put in a super chat, but just, yeah, definitely, I want to make sure I get the reference correct here. But yeah, seeing Kyle Busch pull off the victory was certainly something notable for sure. And Alex Luft, thank you for your other super chat here. I know nowadays NASCAR fans love Days of Thunder. Wasn't it hated when it first came out, or at least polarizing? Very good point. Very good point. I think polarizing is a good way to put it. For me personally, as somebody who had no background in the sport, I loved it as a movie, and then realizing that, this sport really existed. I do believe that it probably created an unrealistic expectation of the sport in my mind, that the drivers would, wreck each other this much or stuff each other in the barrier, and understanding that, maybe some races that were long green flag runs where the cars were more spread out was perceived to be as a bit more boring. I think you could probably blame some of that on that movie for sure. And I think and certainly the way it plays now feels different. It looks more cartoonish the more you understand the sport. Yeah, and I wish that was covered more. Maybe it was just more politic to handle it the way that it was. But when they did the Golden Hour documentary on the behind the scenes of it, they didn't really talk about the critical response to it. I like that they kind of left off with, I believe it was Ryan McGee talking about how cool the sport looked in the opening shots with Daytona, and I'd have to agree for sure. But yeah, I think there was definitely a concern about it. I think the July race at Daytona that happened after its release was a factor in that, because you did have a three wide battle, excuse me, for third spot, and everybody started wrecking each other. You had that huge wreck, and I believe Jeff Bodine came out and said that he blamed it on that movie, and maybe some drivers just driving over their heads. I still think it's kind of a racing deal, but it's unfortunate timing, and when timing like that plays out, yeah, it's not gonna help anybody there. So that would kind of be another one. But thank you for the super chat there, Alex, and that definitely is a good one to bring that up. Alrighty. So yes, winner of the '67 Daytona 500. Yep, there you go for Mario Andretti. Absolutely. Kyle was under 18 and Marlboro was sponsoring the event. Ah, okay. Thank you, Age Gale. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, Beast of Metal, you're very right to bring that up. That's right, because Marlboro was it was Fontana, because Marlboro was sponsoring the kart finale, right? Was that it? Because they weren't sponsoring the truck race. Was that the concern? Sponsoring the open wheel. Okay, Jonathan. Yeah, you got it there. Yeah, the truck shared, and they didn't want a 16-year-old racing. So there you go. Okay, yeah, right on. Yeah. So hey, that's kind of the other thing that kind of works out. Alrighty. Okay. So let's go into kind of moving on here with the coverage for the weekend. Excuse me for just a moment. It's getting a little too hot in here. I'm going to have to wriggle out of this thing here in the meantime. Let's see. I don't really want to do this on camera. Let me step back. I'm going to step away for just a moment here, folks. I'm going to take a layer off here because it's getting a little bit warm in here. One moment here, and we'll talk about the Xfinity race, and we'll do some trivia here to wrap up the show. So hang in here, folks. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, that's better. This is another thing that happened with. We're back here. So I'll talk about the rest of Sunday. We just finished talking about the Cup race and pulling off some of this wrap here from BJ McLeod's car in the Cup race. This is another thing. So I was soaked when he got back from the Saturday day when we got caught up in the storm. But on Sunday, I bundled up in about the same layers as I did today here, and I was just sweating after that one. That was just entirely too hot. But I'm glad I went too far that direction rather than not enough, because when the Busch Series race and the Xfinity race was over, it was bitterly cold out there, and there were a lot fewer people in the stands for sure. I'd say at least half probably left between the Cup race and the Xfinity race in the afternoon there. So that was kind of the situation at the same time. So yeah, that was kind of a different one. Should have taken that wrap to stay warm. Yeah, that would probably do it. Philip, yeah, that's exactly it. That like a job while he was pulling it apart. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely what was. It was too much exertion there, Philip. I'm with you there, man. So this kind of goes into the Xfinity race here, and this one was a bit more open and shut. Obviously, the only driver that fell out of the race was ultimately with the reversal of the weekend. Would be the final last place finisher of the 2 Mile Oval at the Auto Club Speedway, and that was Gray Galding. Early in the race, CJ McLaughlin had a fuel pressure issue, from what it sounded like on the radio, was losing touch with the pack about the same way that Cody Ware was in the Cup race, hanging on to the competition caution, came in, seemed like it didn't entirely solve the problem, was still at the back of the field, and then the caution came out soon after. I believe it was 26 laps in. Gaulding bounced off the outside wall, and went behind the wall soon after that. And he actually pulled into the garage area right beneath where I was sitting in the press box there. So that was a pretty cool moment. I'm glad I got that on film, taking some pictures of it as he pulled into the garage area, done for the evening there. The only driver that fell out of the race. The remaining 37 starters finished the race under power. I know you got some questions about if that's a record. It probably is. I don't know for sure if it is. I don't think we've had a last placer of the Xfinity race finish the race under power. So we probably haven't had a full field finish under power. We might have had it in trucks. They only had a few truck races here, but I imagine those are pretty low attrition as well. The 08 team with Gaulding, again, another profile that was kind of interesting to write about, much like Allmendinger trying to kind of recapture success from a little bit earlier in his career. Gaulding having that good run with SS Greenlight a couple years ago. So far off to, an okay start. Not great to have this last place run here at the beginning, but the year is very young so far, so hopefully things will turn around for him. As to if we're going to get that streak of top 20 finishes that he had in 2019, that remains to be seen. That's what I'm going to be very interested to see here in the weeks ahead. But Vegas will be a good opportunity for him to bounce back. Bouncing back at the same time during that race was Jeremy Clements after his issues, and also Parker Kligerman, whose car had an issue with the starter when they pushed the car out onto the grid. Big thanks to our Patreon supporter George, who was hanging out with me over on pit road there for much of the race. We had a good time hanging out, and he actually gave me the heads up on the Kligerman story, so big thanks to him for that, and kind of pointing me the right direction there when I was finishing up my Cup coverage and heading out to the Xfinity grid there. Very early, could have been the 48 finishing last, but it was the 08 at the end of the day in that one. So after Gaulding fell out of the race, I didn't catch up with him. I don't know if he went to the Infield Care Center or not. But at that point there, things were kind of winding down and getting pretty cold. So I worked my way over to the media center, watched the race for a little bit there, kind of work on the article for a bit. It was already getting late. I was kind of worried about how long it was going to take doing that because Last Pro is sitting out in the stands and stuff. The Xfinity race turned out to be pretty calm. We had a couple of spins, a couple of incidents. Ryan Ellis got dumped at one point, which sucked. So you had that happen. But then the last 50 laps of the race, I decided to go on top of the building to kind of get a different view of the finish of it. What was really cool about that, Jeff Gluck was up there. A couple other fans were up there. And also Chandler Smith's father was up there watching the race, which was directly over his son's pit box there. So that was really cool. We were all kind of watching that and just stayed there for the finish of it. That was pretty cool. So we just kind of checked that out. The race was pretty calm from there. After, of course, the incident between Austin Dillon and Cole Custer. Custer had very much the best car. And I know we talked about this in the Daytona show that everybody's kind of giving the championship in Xfinity to Custer. I still think they're selling John Hunter Nemechek short. And they definitely saw that with Nemechek inheriting the win and, winning it pretty convincingly after that point. Yes, it happened after the 00 fell out, but Nemechek has finished second and first to begin the season. I think that's a pretty good start for anybody, and the Joe Gibbs effort is not going to be any slouch. So I think anybody that's going to, and again, at the very least, there's going to be 4 people going for the championship at Phoenix, and John Hunter has been in that position before in trucks. He's been in that position where he's missed the top 4 in trucks. Is this going to be kind of the secret that he can get in there and try to kind of find a way to pull off the victory? Who knows? We're going to find out in a few months here. But that would be something to see. But it was cool to see John Hunter win at a track where his father won the first Cup pole position in 1997. That was brought up by some other channels there. They were good. They were keen to bring that up. So that was really cool. So a bit of history to kind of wrap that up. A pretty calm race after the excitement over Custer. But still, some pretty good racing there. There were a couple of times on the restarts where you had like some 3-wide battles, and the field kind of got knotted up there. And so that was kind of that. So that wrapped up. Like I said, I went through the infield at that point. I talked with Kligerman after he got out of his car. He was nice to stop for an interview. He says he's very much looking forward to Vegas this week, as that's a track that he's very comfortable with. Phoenix, he says he's still working on. He says he wants to kind of get better at that track in particular, and then Coda in particular. He's really looking forward to. And so that's going to be kind of the big thing. So the other teams are working on it. Again, I mentioned the other teams that were pulling off wraps and kind of doing that. I didn't grab anything from those teams, but there were several others that were doing it at that point there between Gase's team and Jeb Burton's and so forth. So at this point here, it's getting pretty dark, pretty cold. I think it was about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Yeah, probably about that time. So I went back into the media center. There were maybe like a couple other people there that were taking their pictures in front of the old signage in the media center, not knowing, if that's going to still be there or not. We never got a formal announcement of this, what the track's going to look like. We've seen the leaks earlier this week about how they've already sold all the other parcels around the track, that they've saved, about 80 acres of the surface for that. So that was kind of the situation there, but it was getting kind of late, and I wanted to kind of take some pictures of diecast on the track and kind of do like I usually do with some of these other tracks. I didn't want to wait too much longer, especially if it started raining. So kind of packed up at that point, dropped my stuff off at the car, and Laspro and I went back out to the line and signed the start-finish line, which was cool. We didn't get a chance to do that before the race started. But there were other people that had signed things on there, don't bulldoze this track. There was somebody from NASCAR's Reddit board that put something there saying send type F in the chat, things of that nature. I, of course, wanted to, I took some pictures of the start-finish line myself in recognition of picking the race winner for the last race. My brother and I always have a bit of a competition about that. I did something similar at Phoenix in 2019 when I picked Hamlin to win that race back then. But what I think one of the coolest things about it, before we went out there, they had started to turn off some of the lights around the track. And they started with the ones in the corners. They actually had some temporary lighting that was certainly in turn 1. And I think they had some, or turn 4. And then I think they had some on the entrance to turn 1 as well. Those were turned off when I left the media center, which again was maybe like 9:30 thereabouts. And when we went back out there in the starting line, they still had the lights on and stuff, so we could kind of see and do some pictures and stuff like that. And then they turned the lights off on the main grandstands, like right after we finished that. And then I did some diecast pictures on the track, and right at that point, they turned off the lights from pit road. So the Musco lights that would reflect off the lights, those turned off, and it was really dark. I mean, it was like almost not pitch black, but I mean, you had to kind of be a little careful, kind of feeling yourself around. And it was a very eerie atmosphere. And it was right after we finished signing the start-finish line. The lights went out, and like that was kind of something. And so we walked back to the car, and by the time we went back to the car and drove out, it was even darker. And I couldn't help but think of, I'm a big Titanic enthusiast. One of the first historical subjects I studied as a kid. And I remember watching that National Geographic thing of Dr. Ballard when he left a plaque on the stern section, or I think it was on the bow section of the Titanic at the bridge. And then the submarine went up, and the ship just kind of disappeared below him. Different context entirely, but I have to say I got a similar vibe to that this way here, where it was like the track just disappeared. Like obviously it was still there. Obviously they haven't bulldozed it, but the lights just got darker and darker, and that was it. And is that going to be the last time that we go to this track? Is that going to be the last we ever hear of this? I think that question is still very much up in the air. We know now that, again, the property around the track has been sold, that NASCAR is saving a very small portion, a portion so small, in fact, that it's only about 1/3 the acreage of either Bristol or Martinsville. And we know that there was discussions about this next gen track that they were going to be doing, and that there was a rendering that showed that still kind of dropped in there into the picture. But is that still going to happen? I mean, do we know that's going to happen? I mean, are they going to lease parking spots around the track? Again, things are still pretty quiet on that front. And I think NASCAR being a little bit, a little bit of misdirection earlier the weekend when they denied that they sold the property, and then this information comes out they sold it. That was kind of an interesting situation there too. So, um, yeah, that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I like taking these trips down there. This one had a lot of craziness getting down there. In comparison, driving back really wasn't that big of a deal. We got the window that was there on Sunday extended a little bit into Monday. It was drizzling in LA, but the Grapevine was open, and we basically took a straight shot up five, and we got there pretty quickly actually in early evening. So that was fine, but yeah, this is a venue I've enjoyed covering these last couple of years. I've only done it a couple of times, and I think that there are definitely some things that if they are going to make a new track there, I think they would improve a number of things. I mean, I've already talked endlessly in this tonight about how hard it is to get from one part of the track to the other, whether it's the medical center or to the fan zone or to anywhere else. And apparently according to Last Pro, it was very hard to kind of get through parts of the grandstands as well, because the parts of the grandstands that were torn down had taken out some of the stairwells and some of the amenities. So there was about half of the amenities and half the restrooms there that were there before, and that created kind of some log jams there at the same time. That's going to be something they're going to still have to deal with even if they build a short track with the existing grandstands there. That's going to have to be a real question too. But, Wi-Fi has always been an issue there. It was just as spotty this year. You basically had to be standing in the media center for anything to load, which is tricky. These are all things that probably could be fixed by making it a short track, and doing that. The other half of it that you have to talk about is, of course, the history of the track itself. Growing up, this was a track that I never really had circled on my calendar. And I think a lot of fans, were like that. After the first couple of years, that is. The first couple of years, it was very much symbolic of NASCAR's explosive growth and popularity. The fact that it had been years since Ontario and Riverside were closed, and Southern California was now a big market, and you want to bring the Hollywood types into the sport. You haven't had the Clash at the Coliseum yet. This is going to be kind of the big draw for it. And there was a lot of excitement for it, as there was for Las Vegas, as there would later be for Chicagoland and Kansas and some others. And New Hampshire was part of that too, even back in '93. Certainly with the Car of Tomorrow, and certainly the Gen 6 as well, it did not race very well at this track. It did not race well until the surface itself was worn out to the point that it rivaled Darlington or an Atlanta. And then finally, in these last few years, most significantly last year, it started to have some good races. I mean, it was incredible that after struggling with the Car of Tomorrow, when that car ran there for the first time in 2008, or with the Gen 6 in 2013, that really with the next gen, it seemed to really take to this car, and really take to this kind of track. And unfortunately, for whatever reason or reasons, it's just too little, too late. It's always sad. I mean, you don't want to ever see any track, even have the possibility of losing a track. But I mean, obviously, where the sport is and the fact that they're introducing new venues and really bringing back old venues. I mean, it's endlessly fascinating that the final race at Fontana comes amidst all this news from North Wilkesboro of all the things that have been built around the track, and the garage is now paved there, according to the latest reports I saw earlier today. And seeing, a resurgence in that track, and what's going on in Rockingham and what's going to be happening, if it's going to be on the schedule or not. These are questions that, everybody's going to be asking at the same time. But it's sad. It's sad to lose it, especially here as a Californian. It's not one I grew up with. I mean, certainly compared to Sears Point. But just in these last couple of years, I mean, I've really enjoyed, covering the races there, and the unusual last place finishes that have kind of happened in some of these incidents here. Tracking some of that, and really, heck, just starting to get comfortable with the press box. I hope if they do make a short track out of any of the infrastructure that's there, they keep the existing press box, like not just the ones obviously on the stands, but the one in the infield. It's got such a wonderful view, and I think at a short track it would be even better. So I hope they aren't starting completely from nothing. I think that would be a little wasteful, but who knows? I'm no architect or engineer. I don't know what the plans are going to be exactly. But yeah, I mean it's a little sad to see it in person. It is. I'm sure it would probably feel the same way, even in a track like Texas that had absolutely did not cover itself in glory last year between the twin disasters of both the All Star race and that fall race last year. There was a vision there. There was a vision there at some point, and it captured something at that time. And but NASCAR's lost tracks before. You look at the list of tracks that the Cup Series has competed on in these 75 years now, and it's mammoth. It's way more than you could fit in any season, and some of them are just forgotten dirt tracks, like the Air Base Speedway that Slap Shoes did his investigation on, or tracks like Raleigh that NASCAR Man did his video on. Things that they just exist in memory, or just a little piece here and there. And it's a little bit harder in LA because anything that gets kind of demolished, there's usually no sign of it left. We drove through what used to be Riverside just last fall, and you would never know that there was a track there ever. I mean, there's no sign of it at all. There's not even a sign of the original uphill grade into the chute there. And I remember taking a class in college that says that LA is a city of perpetual amnesia, that it's constantly redeveloping and it's constantly building something and tearing something else down, and there's no memory of that history. And you watch a video from any different time period, and it can look just radically different than it does now. And that's always going to be the same. But yeah, it was interesting to see in person. And I'm hopeful that we're still going to get racing in LA. I don't think that the Clash is going to make a points race. I don't think that the Coliseum is going to do that. I think that's a non-starter. Honestly, I think if anything, they should probably make the Clash harder to get into, and maybe just limit it to the pole sitters and just have it be a fun little thing. I know that NASCAR probably doesn't want that because they probably want to get the biggest return on their investment, get as many cars and many races out there. But I think if they're going to do that, then they should bring more series out there, not just the Cup Series. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I think, but I don't see it being a points race. I really don't. Even with like heats and everything, I don't think that's going to be workable. There's been talk about Irwindale and Kern County and some of these other tracks down there. I don't know. Kern County seemed pretty nice. We drove past that on the way out. It's pretty remote. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of attention from whatever, but maybe as a standalone thing it'll work. And Irwindale, I don't know what, I mean, aren't that one always seems like it's in and out of being about to be demolished too. So it's hard to say. I know NASCAR wants to stay in LA. I know they have some presence in LA, but as to how that's going to manifest next year, personally, I think that this is going to be the opportunity that NASCAR has looked for to move Sears Point to the West Coast swing, even though obviously it's not in LA. San Francisco is worlds apart from LA, but to at least maintain a California presence, rather than doing what they did during COVID and ran the race at the Daytona road course. I think this might be the time that they do that and maybe open the summer date to a new venue or something like that. And I could see that probably happening. There's been a lot of memes out of a green Sonoma and what it would look like in the spring. Well, hey, how about making it maybe the second or third or fourth race of the year? Will certainly accomplish that. You'll probably also get some use out of those rain tires too, because we usually get, we don't usually get snow like we got this year, but we usually get some pretty heavy rain through Northern California here. It's just very rare that you get as much of what we saw in Southern California at the same time. So that's kind of my thinking on that. But it was kind of cool how we left it at the same time. If this turns out to be the last time we go in there, I think we left with some pretty cool memories there and some good pictures, which is better than some of these other tracks have received so far, including places like Kentucky and Chicagoland, certainly. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to be coming around the bend on that, but we're gonna all find out together. And that's certainly the case here. So with that, we'll do some trivia questions here to kind of wrap up the evening. And if you guys have any other questions you'd like to ask about the weekend in general, or anything I forgot to mention here, kind of in our review of what happened here this past weekend, definitely let me know. Otherwise, we'll do some questions here on the old 1990s Trivial Pursuit thing to wrap up for today. All right. Let's do this. Alrighty. So, once again, for those of you tuning in, so this is like made around the time that Fontana was opened back in the late 90s. So it's like a late 90s trivia deal here. For those of you who are new to the chat here, categories once again are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Once again, those categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So definitely let me know. Let me know what you are interested in on that. I grew up with the Browns, Sears Point, and damn it, that's how it should always be, says RD Fox. Well, yeah, well, I mean, that's certainly possible. Death Killer. It captured NASCAR's hubris, that's for sure. Well, it's very possible LA just wasn't meant to have NASCAR racing, which is sad because, again, I think it does have a good motorsports community down there, but maybe it's just gone a different direction. Maybe, Last Pro was actually kind of suggesting Long Beach, and I know Denny Hamlin shot that down pretty quickly on his podcast. But, NASCAR has kind of shown a willingness to kind of piggyback on historic venues that are known for other sports. I'm still amazed that even though it's not on the schedule this year, that Knoxville didn't stir some anger out of dirt track purists. I always kind of figured the World of Outlaws bunch were not going to be happy about NASCAR stepping onto their territory and running the third string series on that track, but they seemed to welcome them with open arms. Unfortunately, it didn't it had diminishing returns, which we've seen at some of these more unique venues here. But, again, I think on that same thinking is probably where they're probably going to look at Long Beach, especially that's going to hinge, though, on what happens in Chicago for the street course. If that's wildly successful, you're going to get places all over the place asking for them. And a legacy one like Long Beach might be the one to, excuse me, do it too. All right. Laguna Seca. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's not Southern California, but it is California. Groove Tires. Yes, MLG Pro Swag. Yeah, so something about that. What was it? I know I talk a lot about Denny's podcast, but we were listening to it on the way back. But, he was talking about narrowing tires. But, yeah, Groove Tires to make the cars more out of control. I mean, I don't know. There was the thinking on Denny's podcast was that if you make the tires skinnier, it's going to make the cars, even a car with low horsepower is going to feel like it's got like twice as much because it's going to be completely out of control. I guess that could be, maybe that's going to be, in terms of the same response. They've run Groove Tires in NASCAR ages ago, but not certainly in recent memory. I don't know. I don't know how exactly that'll turn out. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I think if they do make the cars harder to drive, that would be more interesting to see. But, do they have to be impossible to drive? I don't think so. I think we're seeing a lot of steps made with this current car to try to keep things interesting enough as is. How interesting does it have to be? I don't know. Let's see here. Urbandale was sold in October, Michael. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Is he 611 Hornet? No, I haven't seen Black Flags Matters stream there. 225 Jeff Gordon wins, and Bobby Labonte is a 7-time champion. That'd be pretty crazy. Let's see, a couple for wild card. Yeah. I see a couple for pits. I see a couple for tracks. I don't see really one that's kind of pulled out ahead here. Maybe we'll do pits. That might be one we haven't done as much there. Let's see. Okay. All right, here we go. Folks, first question. What 1955 car had the most powerful non-supercharged US-made engine ever? What 1955 car had the most powerful non-supercharged US-made engine ever? That is our first question, folks. F1 tried it in the 90s, 2000s. Fans hated it at the same time. Teams started putting tons of wings on the car. Gotcha. I don't know. Yeah, it's like it's nice to see. I heard about the latest report about what was it that they're going to reduce some of the flanges on the diffuser for road courses and short tracks. So that's good. I mean, anything that they're going to try to make it simplified again. I think just getting rid of the stage cautions is already going to make the road courses infinitely better. I'm so excited about Sears Point this year. And does that remind me? Does that extend to Xfinity too? So I mean that should be for all three series. It's not just Cup, right? Like because we got Xfinity and Cup for Sears Point, and I think that's gonna be those are gonna be some really good races. Pretty much everybody I talked to after the Xfinity race in particular, I was like, hey, yeah, see you guys at Sears Point, because that's gonna be good. I think that'll be good. What 1955 car had the most powerful non-supercharged U.S.-made engine ever? I guess it's for Studebaker, Chevelle, Chevy, Chrysler 300, 55 Chevy, Cadillac. Going with the crowd on this one, the Chrysler 300. All right, here we go, folks. The answer is indeed the Chrysler 300. Boom. RD Fox, you got it just ahead of Nathaniel Ivy. All right, let's do another one here. What make of car did Ray Fox turn to when GM dropped out of racing in the 60s? Let me read that again, a little closer to the mic here. What make of car did Ray Fox turn to when GM dropped out of racing in the 60s? Death Killer, Rod Studebaker. I swear, I think you're probably the only one in this on my YouTube channel that likes my terrible broadcast videos. But God bless you. I'm glad those still get a couple of hits. They can't all be winners. Joseph, thank you for your comment there. Thank you so much for your support on the on 500 days. Joe, who knows about Richard Petty, right on. No, thank you. I'm glad you supported that video. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I actually just had an interview, more of a answering interview questions for another person's article here that's coming up. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed talking about some of the other videos and kind of the process of putting them together too. I'll reveal. I don't want to reveal too much on that because I don't know what the timeline on this one is, but yeah, it should be an interesting once it's put out there. Has some good questions. What make of car did Ray Fox turn to when GM dropped out of racing in the 60s? Devin was another person I ran into. That's a good viewer of the channel there too. Big thanks to Devin for reaching out there during the weekend. Really said he enjoyed the Jerry Nadeau video, so we got to talk about that there. And yeah, a lot of good viewers of the channel. It always amazes me how many people recognize me from the channel there and talk about the content there. So that's always a lot of fun. Hopefully, we got some good people here in the chat as well, and they're able to check this out. Yeah, we had a number of people there on the weekends, but yeah, good crowd on hand for that. What make of car did Ray Fox turn to when GM dropped out of racing in the 60s? Alrighty. Oh, Beast of Metal. Yeah, I know you support those too. I appreciate it. Yeah, broadcast problems was probably the way to go, but I've approached the broadcast thing so many different directions. I mean, it's almost old hat really at the point on this channel, but yeah, I think that was kind of the approach at that point. Oh yeah, Joseph. Yeah, with the Petties, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I can't imagine how much Kyle took on that. I'm still working my way through Kyle's biography, by the way. I enjoyed the first part of it. I've only read a little ways into it, but I want to finish that off. It's the next one on my nightstand right now. So, um, yeah, now that season started and Daytona's kind of rolling, and the Derek Cope book is hopefully moving forward, I think we're at a good point here. What make of car did Ray Fox turn to when GM dropped out of racing in the 60s? The answer is Dodge. Dodge is the answer. Dodge is the correct answer. 611 Hornet, you got it. Charles Peterson Jr. and MLG Pro Swag, you got it earlier. There you go. Oh, yeah, Xfinity and trucks standalones will have stage cautions. But, I mean, if it's a companion race, though, they shouldn't have stage cautions, I think. Sears Point's going to be a companion race. It's not a standalone like Portland will be the week before. All right, here we go. Next question. What mechanical genius opened a Daytona tire dealership upon retiring in 1972? What mechanical genius opened a Daytona tire dealership upon retiring in 1972? If you can hear the rain in the background, I swear, it's still been storming today. I actually worked from home today because it was just, I couldn't get out on the roads. We had snow all over my car. There was a lot of snow on the road still. It's just like, nah, I'm going to spot this one more day. Luckily, I had some paperwork and stuff I could work on from here, but yeah, that was, it's still pretty hairy. A lot of this should blow over tomorrow though, so I'm encouraged by that. What mechanical genius opened a Daytona tire dealership upon retiring in 1972? Several guesses for Smokey Yunick. I'm not seeing really anything else. Let's find out. The answer is Ray Fox. Second Ray Fox question. Ray Fox. Tricky one. I think that kind of ties in with the Neil Castles video because Neil drove one of Ray's last start there. Death Keller, you might have just jumped in right underneath there. Next question. Let's do a couple more here, folks. Who was Mike Skinner's crew chief when he won the Daytona 500 pole as a rookie? Who was Mike Skinner's crew chief when he won the Daytona 500 pole as a rookie? Oh, that's right. Is everybody still reacting to the Ray Fox question? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that tricked me too. You guys convinced me it was Smokey Yunick. I wasn't sure. Of course, I was searching my memory if Smokey Yunick retired in '72. I almost think he did it earlier. Like, didn't he quit like when the France family didn't like the Chevelle he made that was like 7/8 scale or something like that? I thought there was something about that. Who was Mike Skinner's crew chief when he won the Daytona 500 pole as a rookie? That is our question. Fatback McSwain, Kevin Hamlin, Larry McReynolds, Frank Welker. Who started outside of Skinner at Daytona 97? That was Steve Grissom. Who was Mike Skinner's crew chief when he won the Daytona 500 pole as a rookie? And the answer is Kevin Hamlin. I thought it was Larry McReynolds. I thought for sure, but it does say Kevin Hamlin is the correct answer. Joseph Schneiderman, I think you were the first one on that one. Okay, so we'll do one more question here tonight, folks. Last question for the evening. Last question here it is. Who served as crew chief when Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup title? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Who served as crew chief when Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup title? Who started outside pole of Skinner at the summer race? Oh, I'm trying to remember. It was Andretti, wasn't it? Didn't Andretti win it from the front row? Or was he third? I seem to picture the 98 was up there. Either that it was Earnhardt. I don't think it was Earnhardt. Who served as crew chief when Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup title? Alrighty, here we go. Who served as crew chief when Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup title? We got guesses for Andretti started third. Okay, that's why. All right. So it was Earnhardt on the front row. Gotcha. Right on. I got LG DeWitt, Travis Carter, Jonathan Quick. DeWitt was the owner. Not sure he was the crew chief. All right, one more time for the last question tonight. Who served as crew chief when Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup title? The answer is Travis Carter. Travis Carter, eventually team owner of Jimmy Spencer and other drivers there. Travis Carter is the correct answer. Anybody get that? Yeah, Maserati 9, you got it. And yeah, it's like you were the first one, I think. Alrighty, Travis Carter is correct. RD Fox tried to get me to pronounce Vinko Bagoda. Vinko Bagoda. That'd be a fun one to say. Some of these names, if you say it like it's a breakfast cereal, it's going to be a lot of fun. Alrighty, folks. Well, that'll do it for our Fontana show here. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for your support this weekend. It was a wild one. We went through the ringer there in the weather, but I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage there along the way. I certainly enjoyed providing it there. And we got the articles up on the website. I just added some more pictures to them this afternoon. The statistics pages are updated. The entry list article for Las Vegas is coming up this Thursday. And then we'll be back to our coverage here from LASCAR headquarters for the next couple months, starting with the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series here in Las Vegas for the spring weekend. Is it going to be a Kyle Busch sweep of the entire weekend, or is somebody else going to get the drop on him once, twice, or perhaps even three times? Only time will tell. So we're going to go ahead and find out together. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening. The website, again, is lascar.info. The Twitter is at @LascarOnBrock. And, of course, the Patreon is patreon.com/LascarOnBrock. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Our next show will be next Sunday after the Cup Series race at Las Vegas. We'll start about 15-20 minutes after the checkered flag. And further details, again, will be on the Twitter feed at @LascarOnBrock. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out other content on here. And Joseph Schneiderman, thank you for your super chat as well. Thanks, Brock Beard, and thank you as well. So thank you for tuning in. Have a good night, everyone.